Hey everybody, Brayden here at SuperATV, and today we're going to be installing our Rhino driveline and billet carrier bearing on this Polaris RZR 1000. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is remove both of the front seats from the machine. The next step is going to be to remove the center console by removing the 3 Torx-headed screws and the 4 push pins. Once all the hardware is removed, remove the center console. Remove the 2 bolts located here and here, holding the scatter shield and carrier bearing to the frame of the machine. Remove the 10mm bolts securing the shield to the frame. Once you have all the hardware removed from the shield, go ahead and remove the shield. Removing this shield through the center console hole here is going to require quite a bit of force. There's a few different ways of doing this. You can remove the gas tank and then it'll just slide right out through the top here, or you can push it all the way back and cut it in half and then pull it out. To save time, we're going to remove it through the center console. And you're going to want to pull this tab up over top your wiring harness and then pull the shield upwards. It's going to be in the plastic here, so you may have to take a pry bar and pry it out. As you're prying it out, push it forward. Take a screwdriver and bend the mounting tab on the driver's side upward. The next thing we're going to do is remove the front prop shaft from the differential. To make it easier to get in there, we're going to go ahead and remove the passenger side, front, wheel and tire. Next, we're going to take a long punch and a hammer and knock out the roll pin. Once you've knocked your pin out of your prop shaft, securing it to the pinion shaft on the differential, go ahead and slide it off the pinion shaft. And you're going to want to push it to the driver's side, push the prop shaft forward as far as you can possibly get it. You may have to wiggle it, shake it, move the yoke around a little bit. Once you have it to that point, we're going to go back in the machine and separate the 2 prop shafts. We're going to do this by angling the front prop shaft as far over as we can. Grab a hold of the carrier bearing and then separate the 2 from each other. You can pull the front prop shaft right out through the center here. Next, we're going to remove the pillow block from the bearing carrier. What you want to do is you want to slide it to one side and pick it up, take a flathead screwdriver and just work it around all the way. Then go ahead and remove the pillow block. Then you're going to want to slide your prop shaft forward, angle it to the side a little bit, then we're going to move to the back of the machine. And you're going to want to grab your prop shaft and slide it right out the back here. I'll slide it all the way out of the machine. So the next step is going to be to get your carrier bearing out of the box, then go ahead and remove all 4 of the Allen headed screws. Once you have all those loose, take the cap off. We're going to remove the bearing. We're going to sit it aside for just one moment. Then we're going to come to our prop shaft. This is going to be our rear prop shaft. We're going to go ahead and remove the snap ring. Then we're going to get some brake cleaner and clean off this bearing surface. Make sure you get it good and dry. Get all the oil off of it. We're going to do the same thing on the inside of our bearing. And we're going to grab our provided green retaining compound. So we got that opened up. We're going to come over here to our bearing surface. We're going to put a good amount of this retaining compound all the way around. Once you get a good amount on there, you want to take your finger and just kind of work it all the way around the whole surface. Make sure it's got a good even coat. We're going to be installing this in an XP1000 today, so we want to make sure that our grease ring on our bearing is facing towards the prop shaft. Just like that. You're going to make sure that you get it as straight as possible. And we're going to go ahead and start knocking the bearing down onto the prop shaft. We made a tool to install the bearing. Any piece of pipe the same diameter of the inner portion of the bearing will work to install the bearing. You want to make sure that your bearing is fully seated and that your snap ring groove is fully visible, and then we're going to take our snap ring, go ahead and reinstall it to the prop shaft. This is going to be what secures the bearing and make sure that it doesn't slide around. You may want to go around with a screwdriver and make sure that snap ring's fully seated. One thing to keep in mind, the carrier bearing that's going to come in the kit with the prop shaft is going to come with this locking collar. If you're using a Rhino brand prop shaft, you will not use this. You will use the snap ring only. One thing that's very important when installing SuperATV's Rhino series prop shafts is going to make sure that the fixed ends are clocked 90 degrees from each other. So when I say fixed ends, the fixed end of the prop shaft is going to be here and here on the front, and then on the rear it's only going to be here. So for example, if we have a rear prop shaft installed to our output shaft on our transmission and the fixed end is like this, straight up and down, then our front prop shaft needs to be oriented like this. Since the rear is like this, we want to clock at 90 degrees so that we have a flat fixed end here. Then it'll just slide right on, just like this. So this is how we're going to install them into the machine. So now we're going to want to slide our prop shaft in the same hole that the factory one came out of. Make sure that our fixed end of the prop shaft is straight up and down. And we're going to slide it onto the splines of the output shaft on the transmission. Next, you're going to take the lower portion of your bearing carrier, slide it into the machine underneath the prop shaft. And you're going to want to move the prop shaft around as well as the lower portion of the bearing carrier until you get it lined up with the grease groove. And once you get it lined up, you're going to want to take your front prop shaft, making sure to orient it 90 degrees from however you set your rear up. We set our rear up straight up and down like this. So we're going to clock ours 90 degrees. Slide it in. Remember, you got to slide it over to the driver's side as far as it'll go. You slide your rear back as far as it'll go. And you kind of angle them both over to the side. Pick up on your front, slide it onto the splines. Looks like we got ours all lined up. Now we're going to slide our front prop shaft as far back as we can, as well as the rear. And we're going to go up here to the front of the machine and reinstall the front prop shaft to the pinion shaft on the differential. So once we have our prop shaft slid back as far as it'll go, we're going to take our prop shaft and rotate it around until the hole in the prop shaft lines up with the hole on the pinion shaft. You just want to rotate this prop shaft downward to where you can get your new roll pin started. So once you have the roll pin started, you'll want to take a punch and a hammer and knock the roll pin all the way through until it's flush on either side. So it looks like we got it flush on both sides, and we're going to head back into the machine. Now we're going to take our provided Loctite and the hardware for the bearing carrier. Go ahead and put a good amount of Loctite. Then you're going to want to go ahead and start your bolt in the factory hole in the frame. Start this bolt in here as well. You don't want to tighten them up yet, you just want to get them run down. And we're going to go back to the back of the machine and make sure that we have a sufficient amount of gap between our rear prop shaft and our transmission case. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull the prop shaft forward to where we just have a gap about that much in between the face of the yoke of the prop shaft to the transmission case. Next, we're going to take the top portion of the bearing carrier, go ahead and apply some Loctite to all the hardware. We're going to make sure that the SuperATV is facing forward, and we want to make sure that our grease ring and the top portion of the bearing carrier is lined up with our bearing. We're going to lay it into place. going to go ahead and start all the hardware. You don't want to tighten anything at this time. Then we're going to want to go and grab the rear tires and make sure that everything spins freely, nothing's binding up or anything like that. So now that we know everything, it's turning freely, everything's lined up and good. We want to make sure that our bolts are straight across from each other and everything's symmetrical. For example, your bolts could be all the way forward in the carrier, or they could be all the way back, or they could be dead center. Those are the only settings you want to go by. But we just checked to make sure that we had enough room in between our prop shaft yoke and our transmission case. And it looks like that our bolts are laying out perfectly, so we're going to go ahead and tighten everything down evenly, and then we're going to come back and torque it all. Now we're going to set our torque wrench to 45 foot-pounds and torque down the bolts that secure the bearing carrier to the frame of the machine. Once we have our bolts tight that secure the top of the carrier to the lower portion of the carrier, we're going to come back, set our torque wrench to 20 foot-pounds, and then tighten them in an X pattern. There's another one to 20. Now you're going to take your grease gun and put 4 to 5 pumps of grease into your carrier bearing. Make sure it's accepting the grease. Looks like we're good, so we're going to go ahead and put 5 on it. We got 5 pumps in it. Looks like it's accepting the grease good. And then you're also going to want to grease your grease zerk on the back. You may have to roll the tire around a little bit. Grease all the zerks on the prop shafts. Slide it on there, and 1 pump's good. The shield that was previously removed will not be reinstalled, so you can just discard it. And then you'll want to reinstall all the components that you removed, your console, your seats, your tire, and then you're ready to ride. And that's how easy it is to install SuperATV's Rhino prop shafts and billet carrier. For more information on the Rhino prop shafts or billet carrier, or any of SuperATV's great products, give us a call at 855-743-3427 or check us out online at superatv.com. Thanks for watching and have a great day.